Welcome to the Hidden Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Hargrove, and today we have a very special guest, and that is my very own lovely wife, Lauren Hargrove. Lauren, hello.
Hello. Excited to be here.
How excited I am to have you on this show.
Yes.
And the very first guest for the new theme of the Hidden Potential Podcast, which is connecting and growing the best we can.
Yeah.
And who better to start us off than my very own lovely, amazing, gorgeous spouse.
Well, thank you. I'm very honored to be here today, Homer, and I'm excited to talk with you. So let's do this.
Well, let's go ahead and start off by getting to just know who Lauren is.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I feel like a weird dynamic when it comes to marriage and ministry and jobs in general is that we sometimes identify ourselves as like so-and-so's spouse. And especially like with church ministry, it's typically like, oh, that's the pastor's wife.
Right.
And I know that you've dealt with that. Well, I don't want to say dealt with, but that's been like your label at different times, unintentionally by people.
Right.
So let's kind of unpack who you are, your role, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, and yeah, I know that is kind of like a perception in ministry, and especially couples that are married, and the wife being kind of like the wife of. And for me, like throughout our journey so far, I honestly, it's not something I take personal whatsoever. And I know that's not necessarily your question, but like for us right now, fast forward where we're at, I feel like, for me, my heart has always been just to simply, in a sense, serve where it's needed, And so I've never been one personally to say, oh, I want to be this label. I want to be this position. I want to be known for this, this, and this. And as you know, like throughout our journey in ministry, before planning our church and even planning our church, I've always been desired and stood up to take the roles of the things that are needed, such as the children's area. We started in our 1-bedroom apartment with me serving the families that came in our kitchen, taking care of the children, teaching them lessons, serving them. And that's obviously grown over the years to where we've been able to little by little train other people to do that. But that's been my heart, to serve in those areas that are needed and also valuable and important. And, as the years have evolved, and then we even stepped into parenthood, becoming a mother as well. And
where do kids come from?
That was a good one. But, and just stepping into these different seasons, it's crazy because ministry has evolved from these personal aspects of life, such as motherhood. And there's a time where motherhood was challenging and I felt lonely, and us being able to work in ministry, you inspired me and even motivated me to begin what now is Momming with Jesus and this amazing life-giving community. And that all stemmed from a desire I had to, one, find connection with other mothers, but two, serve other mothers and offer for them what I know I was looking for and I realized that they were looking for. And it's become this life-giving, flourishing ministry. And so, and I feel like in this season in ministry for us, and in marriage too, God's been opening doors little by little for me to be able to serve in different capacities. As seasons have changed, our children have grown older, and people within our church have been so amazing at serving in such a greater capacity. So, I hope that answers a little bit of your question, but my heart is just simply to serve where is needed. So.
Yeah, and I feel like, of course, I know you personally, like really personally.
Right.
But I feel like so much of what you have done over the years has been in the background.
Right.
And especially like working with kids, it's typically like a background job to where it's a lot of work, not a lot of recognition. And I guess my first question would be, how did you handle that kind of, I don't know if like suppression is the right word, but being unseen for so long when it comes to like the general population, when it comes like putting so much heart, so much effort, and not typically getting like this recognition, to where there'd be times where I feel like people would say, oh wow, she speaks good, and I'm like, well yeah, of course she does, she's a great speaker, she's an amazing public speaker. And then I would realize like, oh, they haven't even gotten a taste of her. They don't even know because she's always doing this background stuff. Yeah. So how did you handle those feelings, those emotions, even that patience of waiting till like a more, I don't want to say like glorious opportunity, but more seen moments and opportunities?
Right. Yeah, it's a good question. I will say, one, it hasn't been easy because, serving in the background for several years now, it's not so much that I care to be in the front of anything. That's never been my heart. But it's also hard because in the background is hard work. Yeah. That's where you're sacrificing not being in church service. I mean, who doesn't like being in church services and having worship and having community? And me and people, I guess, in the position that I'm in, serving in that capacity, it feels a little bit isolating sometimes. But here's the thing. The answer to your question, like what's motivated me to keep doing it, or like just in this season and in the seasons prior to, is really like 100%. I always knew that was what God was calling me to do. So it wasn't so much like, oh, I need to do this because this is what's needed, which it was like that was one part of my heart. And it wasn't so much like, oh, there's no one to help in children's church or help in this like ministry or this. It was more so like I remember specific moments of God literally speaking to me and calling me. And literally I felt him asking me, will you do this for me? Will you serve in this ministry that maybe most might just not realize the importance of it, and they, would prefer to be over here rather than there. Yeah. And I heard him very clearly, not only in our ministry, but the ministry prior when we served, ask me and kind of call me to that. And so I just knew like throughout it that one, it was important to God. Two, it was a valuable ministry that sometimes can be easily overlooked. Yeah. And three, I mean, it's just important, And so, and then knowing the times where I'm like, man, I wish I could kind of be over here or be in service or like be able to like mingle and talk with people. But at the same time, in those moments, I'm like, wow, like God sees, and I'm speaking more so towards the kids ministry because that was a lot of the background work that I feel like I've done for years, but there's other things along that. Yeah. But I feel like realizing like this is genuinely so important to God. Like, even though I might sometimes, like, oh, I want to kind of be able to, the answer to that. But my point is that I felt like also God saw me. And so in those moments where maybe I didn't feel seen or recognized, and it's not that so much I was desiring that, but I felt reassured to know that God sees the work that I'm doing. Yeah. He sees the heart that I'm pouring into it. He sees that I am being obedient to his calling, and he sees that I'm genuinely serving him and not pushing for something I could try to push for. And my heart, again, was never a desire to be seen or to be at a greater position, but more so knowing that God sees me. And I'm very confident to know that when we like humble ourselves before God, that whenever his timing is to do anything else that he wants to do with our heart and with our purpose, that he will, that I don't have to, in a sense, earn it. I don't have to, in a sense, prepare my platform. Like when I'm humbly serving him, like whenever he's ready to do anything quote unquote greater, he will. Yeah. And I feel like that's just something that I rather just work for God and like be obedient to his calling than try to push for something that's not according to his like will, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's a little bit of the heart behind that.
Of course I'm biased in the fact that you are such a genuine person, and I know that. And I think that the way that you're describing this kind of like this leading and this unction to do God's will, regardless of necessarily like how difficult it is, of really just wanting to please God in your heart. And it makes me think about scriptures where it's like the ways that we're able to love people who can't love us back. And I see you time and time again taking these moments of ministry to really reach for that lonely individual. And when it comes to ministry in churches, like children are often they're often like the neglected ministry of church. Yeah. To where they just throw like any babysitter there to try to just keep them busy while we do an offering call for the parents. Like it's such a often neglected place. And to see you not only fulfill that need, but you were very like diligent and excellent for it. I
Yeah.
remember even when you were a nursery director at our old church, and when it was even just like with babies, and
Yeah.
you would you would direct the staff
Right.
to be reading scripture to these babies.
Yeah.
Like, just like for, if they're going to be in the house of God, then they're going to receive the word
Yeah.
of God, whether they can understand it in their minds or not, their spirit's going to receive something. And
Right.
when I think about like how even for the baby, you are intentional about spiritual impartation and ministry.
Right.
And that is a baby that will never know you. Like, they will never know what you did. They will never, maybe they like back in their memory and their subconscious, they'll hear those still voices or whatever, but it's something that you're doing, this extra thing that's so spiritual, so powerful, but will not be noticed.
Right.
And the whole unction to it is, this is God's will.
Right.
This is God's calling. And I think that is so powerful and special. And I feel like that it's those moments of unseen excellence that leads you in all these other public moments to where,
Right.
like at Gravetop Church, you've now that we've been able to grow and have other people start being delegated for the children's ministry, you've been able to step out of there more and more to where you're even been leading the hosting for the church. And it has been so powerful for, I think, everybody apart to see you lead in this capacity and leading the hosting, leading the discussion time. And you are so articulate. You're so well spoken. I mean, it seems like you're just like this natural public speaker.
Right.
And I think that for me, it's like, oh yeah, like she'll kill it. She's gonna be great. But I think for others, it may even be like a surprise. Like, whoa, like where'd this
Right.
Lauren come from?
Right.
And I think what we're seeing in your dialogue is that same excellence with the baby is followed through with all this other stuff. And I think that God has this favor with you that to where you get this supernatural ability to do other things as you're diligent with this one thing.
Right.
Kind of shifting gears here, talking about where you came from and what you're doing right now as co-pastor of Gravetop Church. If you need to unfollow. But being a co-pastor of the church, so much of what we've done has been in agreement.
Right.
Like we consistently try to make these big decisions for our lives in agreement with each other.
Right.
And some of those agreements have been, even at home, me going to do this while you staying home to pretty much like hold everything together. And people don't often realize like the ministry that's required even to taking care of the home, so that like even just the times I'd go to the recovery center or when I was going to schools and things like that, and you're having to handle everything in the home front. I guess the question is, emotionally, I know that was difficult, but how would you, I guess like, I'm trying to think about other people that would be in similar situations like that. What, maybe not ministry, but maybe it's like other careers. How do you navigate having, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work to hold everything down at home. I remember the moments where you were having to take all the kids out on a walk when they were all just in diapers still and crying on the walk, and having to still think of breakfast, lunch, and dinner for all these kids. And it was a lot.
Yeah.
How did you have the endurance to make it through that and still stay married while still also supporting all these different initiatives I was doing outside of the house?
Yeah.
And you're just having to be this like pillar to hold so much up. How did you emotionally endure? How did you keep your marriage through that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I think as the years have progressed, God has really spoken to me, reassured me, strengthened me. When it all began, I remember, yes, there was walks where I was taking our 2 young children on a walk while you had to be gone all day because of ministry, but also not just ministry, our family and the different family people living with us. And there were so many aspects to our life that were complicated. Yeah. And I remember I couldn't necessarily get out. And so, yes, I was taking our kids on walks, literally crying and praying because I felt lonely, because I wanted help in a sense from you, but it was never that you weren't offering it. It's that was your role and this was my role in that season. And it wasn't so much like, oh, this isn't fair. And in those moments of prayer and crying, I felt like throughout these years, God has just like revealed to me, like, look, every season will be different.
Yeah.
And it is, like, even today, it is so different how it looks now than it was then, as a wife, as a mother, and a person in ministry. And I remember even having a talk with someone I looked up to during that time who was also a pastor's wife. And she was just so encouraging. She's like, there's just going to be seasons where you're with the littles. And one thing that I feel like God really ministered to me is this. Like, I remember specifically one day thinking to myself, I have to stay home with the kids while he goes and does this, while he goes and ministers. And like, I love ministry. I enjoy telling people about God. I enjoy preaching. I enjoy all that stuff. And so there was times where I'm like, man, I would like to go do that. And I just can't right now. And I have to stay home with the kids. And I remember literally one day God saying, no, you get to stay home with the kids. And I don't even know if I ever told you that, but I remember just sitting there like, I have to stay home with the kids. And like, no, you get to. And in that moment I was like, oh my gosh, like, I do. And it's not that I didn't want to be home with the kids. It's hard being home with the kids. So it's not that it's never that I don't want to, but it's like when you're doing it alone, it's hard. Yeah. So it feels overwhelming. But in that moment, I feel like God changed my perspective. Like, I get to stay home with my beautiful children that may be loud, that may be running around, maybe not listening, but I get to stay home with them. And you know what? In that moment, it shifted my perspective. Like, I want to enjoy it. Yeah. And again, this is really walking it out every day is not always easy. But even till this day, there's days where maybe you're out doing different ministry adventures. And I'm just like, these are my children that I get to stay home with. I don't have to. I get to. And I want to make the most of it. And really just realizing, and this is something I've even shared in our Momming with Jesus group, that like, every season is different, and sometimes we are looking for purpose, or even like, for instance, I want to go out and minister like with Homer, or like Homer too, and then taking it back a moment and realizing in this season, this truly is my ministry and this truly is purpose. Yeah. And sometimes women and wives, when they are in seasons where they're primarily at home with the children, or like the younger kids, which require a lot more, they almost feel like they are missing purpose. Maybe their husband's in a career or at 9-to-5 job or in ministry or something like that. And they almost feel like, well, once I'm done raising my kids and they're older, then I'll pursue my purpose. And like, then I'll find my purpose. But I've realized for me, and I share this with other moms, that it's not about missing your purpose. Like, and it's not to sound cheesy or cliche, but your purpose really is right here. I mean, what a greater purpose than to literally mold these children that know nothing and have innocent hearts, to lead them from their own mother to Jesus, to lead them in their thoughts and their behaviors and their worldview, to be able to raise them even in the midst of chaos and like mac and cheese all over the floor. Like, those mundane things are so purposeful. And then also the concept of like, when something I feel like God's really like shown me throughout these years too, is when you're out doing those different adventures, that I'm truly am, and I don't need anyone else to recognize this or appreciate it, but in my heart, I am convinced by God that I am supporting your ministry as you go. My part at taking care of our children and being home doing mundane tasks is a part of ministry that literally pairs with what you're doing to make it happen. And so even though it seems like I'm just cooking and cleaning and taking care of kids, it's a part of the ministry that allows you to be able to do what you're doing. And there'll be days where maybe I can go out and do adventures, but I'm not searching for that right now or looking for that. It's more so like I've come to a place where I love the fact that this is my ministry, and my children are probably they are the most important to me, and like ever, So, there's just a lot of reassurance that God will give, and just being confident that in the seasons, in the purpose, and that there's so much value in what you actually do. So
I think that's so powerful, especially since there's so many different dynamics that it's not that this idea of like, oh, well, my husband's not a minister or my spouse isn't a ministry, but it's still applicable, to careers and different ideas of what we go through. And I think that the way, one of the things that you said years ago that really changed how I viewed life and purpose is, I remember a specific moment in which you shared your devotion for the day with me about how Joseph in the Bible, every time that he was received this affirmation that he was blessed by God, and with each blessing, it was actually just responsibility. Like he was traded to Potiphar, and God blessed him and gave him all these responsibilities. Yeah. And it was the first time I ever realized that, and it's become like a foundational understanding for me in understanding purpose and our callings, that blessing is responsibility. And I think it was so profound, and the way that you're describing handling these blessings, these responsibilities of children, and how it's mixed with ministry. And surely I wouldn't be able to do any of the things I do if it wasn't for you. But on top of that, you also have started these other ventures, and like Momming with Jesus. You have Lori's Kitchen. You have these different
homeschool group.
The Blessed Beginnings homeschool group. You have all these different things that you have also added to your plate, and I think that some people feel at first intimidated. Just handling what they got.
Right.
And I know that you felt like that at different points, but you've gotten, it's almost like you've gotten over those hills.
Yeah.
And now you're on this, you're like, what's next? Yeah. And you're filling in these pieces of your own puzzle. And I want to just like highlight that these things that you're doing are independent of me. It's not like I'm telling you to do this or that, but these are all out of your own initiative. They're these silo ministries that you are leading and taking charge, and they're powerful. They're so. There's times where I even get jealous, like, man, it took off right away. Like, like it took me, so long just to prepare this, and she just did it overnight. And it's like God's just blessed you, and it's so powerful to see. How did you, I guess, like cross that bridge from walk around the block crying with the kids because you get to be with them that day, to now you've crossed that bridge where you're doing above and beyond?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question, because it's crazy, like looking back and then looking to where God has brought things. I still look back, I look at it, I'm like, whoa, like what is going on? What's actually happening? Yeah. And it's just, a testimony of God. It's beautiful. And like when you were sharing that right now, and I know this sounds like a silly way to like give a visual, but it's almost like working out, right? Like, I know, here we go. But like the more you begin to lift, right? Heavy weights, right? And then before you know it, but before you know it, all of a sudden you're like, I think I can lift heavier. And then time goes by and you like begin to lift that weight. That's your new heavy weight. And before you know it, I think I can lift heavier. Like, I think I can do more. And so like when you were sharing that right now, and I was looking at like me literally walking around our neighborhood, carrying a baby in a carrier, pushing a stroller, crying because I'm overwhelmed, and I could barely do that.
Stressing me out just you
and
talking about
I could barely handle just the everyday Cheerio life with 2 babies. It was extremely hard. 2, having our 3 kids, ministry and multiple ministries. It's literally just taking, first of all, like some risks. So and it also like really is dependent on the season. In that season, I could not do what I'm doing now. Yeah. And so recognizing and being content in the seasons you're at, if you begin to have these different ideas and goals and dreams, just allowing the season to be right. And when that season is right, for example, even recently, for example, with the homeschool group, it was a desire that I, once again, just like the Momming with Jesus, I wanted a homeschool community. It was hard to find one. And it's so cool because I've been feeling like by your encouragement and also the ideas of like the Holy Spirit, like, well, once again, why don't you start it? And I'm like, what? Like start it and just, it's so crazy when you just like take that risk. So many of us sit there like, that would be cool. Like, yeah, let's start a homeschool group. Okay. As if, and then move on. But like, imagine the idea of like, well, what if? Yeah. Like as if, like, and so beginning, like learning to just take those risks and see what happens. And before you know it, you'll never know what could actually like come to pass. That was the same thing with the Momming with Jesus group. I literally sent a couple of messages out, and before you know it, it's been years of this like healthy ministry. And the same with this, homeschool group. And my point is sometimes you'll never know how much you can actually carry until you start carrying it. Like, and then before you know it, like I thought I could only handle motherhood and the momming with Jesus, and boy, before you know it, God's opening up another opportunity to serve other people. So even with these like groups and these opportunities, it's not about like, hey, I want to go do great things and fulfill this purpose. It's more like, this is something I desire. How can I serve other women in this area? And before you know it, you realize there are so many other people that have the same desire you have, and you can serve them. And did I know the whole plan? Did I figure it out? No. It's like literally through just, hey, we're going to throw this out and see what happens, And I will say, even with that, the first couple of weeks when we started this group, and shout out to the great people, the team that's like helping lead this, right? But I felt a little bit overwhelming. Yeah. More so because it's like, this is actually something to be responsible for. And once again, in that moment, I was like, I remembered what we talked about before with Joseph, like, this responsibility is a blessing. Yeah. And it felt kind of heavy, and I'll be honest at first. And then all of a sudden I realized, okay, the more, like, the heavier I lift, the heavier I can handle. Right. And so I even told myself, let's give it some time. And before you know it, it's going to be just like another thing that you're so used to. It's the norm. You get your rhythm, you get your routine, and it's something very light and easy to bear, if that makes sense. And so, all I have to say is, one, like, learn to just take risks. And you never know what a great impact something can be from the smallest little idea. Yeah. And two, you never know how much you can carry. And it makes me think of like when you shared about Joseph, but also like the parable of the talents, and how I'll probably butcher the story, but where the master went away and gave the couple of people so many talents, and a couple of them came back, did great with what they have, the 5 or the 10. And what did the master do with those people who did well with what he gave them? So he gave them these talents. The ones that did well, he gave more to be responsible over. And he said, well done, my good and faithful servant. He blessed them. And the way that he blessed them, so just imagine in your career and your job and motherhood maybe, but like, you're doing so well being a kid. Here's some twins. I mean, being a mom to your children. I'm joking. That was a joke. Or you're doing so well.
Can't be messing around. That's too dangerous.
Yeah, that's a joke. But, or for example, like, you're doing so well in your career. Here's a promotion. Like, you're doing so well in this ministry. Here's more people to lead and to influence for my kingdom. And so like, and then the one who didn't do anything with it, well, he didn't really get more responsibility, because he was, there's so many different aspects to his heart in that wasn't right. And so I guess I could go on and on, but just knowing that, like, again, and also to close on that topic, the strength that I speak of, like, you never know how much you can lift until you lift more, really at the end of the day truly comes from the strength that God gives you. Like, I cannot, you cannot, we cannot, no one can do any of this in their own strength. It genuinely is like the power of the Holy Spirit that's like, you may think you can't do this, but you actually can. So let's give it a try. And so,
and I think that the idea of taking that risk is really the sense of like stepping out in faith. Yeah. And, the way that you're describing being able to grow from one season to the next, and also knowing the season that you're in. Yeah. And it makes me think about several things, like as far as like one season from the next. When I look back to the leader I was in 2017 when we started the church, I don't think I would be able to handle even what we're doing right now. Right. I would have been so insecure. I would have felt, I don't know if I just wouldn't be able to handle it. Right. And it was through like all these different years of like just leveling up one step at a time to where now I feel so confident in the things that I do, to where when I'm going somewhere to say like speak or do a workshop, a group, whatever, I feel so confident in the giftings of God, and the Holy Spirit, and what I'm able to do because of this seasons of growing from one to the next. Right. And it was like, last night at a wedding, at the wedding we went to, someone was like, oh, so like you did good, like you gave the message, or the people responded good? I was like, I always do good. And it wasn't out of like this egotistical good, but it's this truly a confidence of like, I know when I've been bad. Right. Yeah. I've known when I've totally bombed it. Right. But now I feel so much more confident. Right. Because of this endurance, because of the seasons. Yeah. And where you're like talking about leveling up is being able to establish that confidence for the next thing. Right. And it's such this like beautiful story when you look backwards and being able to see all the different twists and turns along the way, and being able to see the moments of weakness, the moments of lack, and how you were able to rise above.
Yeah.
It's this beautiful story.
Right.
And I gotta say too that when it comes to recognizing your season, maybe having newborns in diapers is not the best time to start a new ministry.
Exactly.
It may be recognizing that season and being able to do what you can handle, I think would save us so much imposter syndrome when we're trying to do something out of season.
Right.
And it's like this, I think back to when I really wanted to write a book when when the kids were still in diapers. And it was just, I just had to recognize that scene, like, this is a terrible time to try to do that.
Yeah.
Like, maybe later, or maybe now. and now, like, because I was able to appreciate the season and really for me, it's like even starting to plan out my seasons.
Right.
To where I preemptively knew that this year something was going to give, and I'm going to dedicate time for books. And now, like, because of being able to appreciate the season, I pop 3 books out like that, to where they're all different in their own.
Yeah.
But I went from in the wrong season, like, how could I ever do one single book?
Yeah.
To where in the right season, like, oh hell yeah, I can do this. And it's all about recognizing that and building the confidence and building the strength to where it all flows together in this beautiful way.
Yeah.
You talked about lifting. You talked about building your strength. Can you tell us a little bit about your workout routine, your diet? Tell us about Lauren. We want to know what have you been doing, because you look great. I realized for the first several years that we moved in San Antonio, I always knew Lauren, hot, sexy Lauren, and everyone else knew you as hot, sexy, pregnant Lauren.
Yeah, or just pregnant Lauren. It's okay.
So, and I remember when after Jules and you came back.
I did it. I came back.
And I remember the first person was like, wow, Lauren looks great. Wow, she's doing good. I was like, wow, she always looks great. And I realized, like, oh, they've only seen Lauren pregnant.
Just pregnant. 50 pounds heavier.
Yep. Years. They only know pregnant Lauren. What are you doing? Can you just share a little bit about your personal routines, your personal disciplines? Like, what is it that you do when it comes to, like, your personal lifestyle?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. And if you insist, I guess I'll share. But no, I was pregnant for 3 years straight, and that was crazy. And transparently, I gained 50 pounds with each one, or maybe a little more. I don't even know how. Okay. I don't. I
gotta say too, most people thought that I talked to were asking me if we didn't believe in birth control and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like,
no. It was fun, but we're very grateful for how things transpired, because I love our children. Yeah. And so that was crazy. Being pregnant back to back is crazy. Shout out to all the moms who continue to do that, because that's amazing. And okay, so fast forward. I was going to say a joke. So lately I've been realizing that whenever Lauren gets pregnant, it's like Princess Fiona. I'm just going to be real. When she's a princess,
Shrek.
From Shrek.
Okay.
So,
for our listeners out there, get a visual of the ogre.
Okay. So when I get pregnant, I turn into Princess Fiona ogre. Okay.
I disagree, but
so we're going to just remain like this. Okay. But no, I'm very grateful for those journeys, and pregnancy is beautiful. But anyways, fast forward now. So after my third kid, it was a little difficult for me to finally get back to a place where I felt really comfortable. I tried for literally 2 years. So after Jules, it took me 1 whole year, and I finally felt like I am back. And, for everyone out there, we all have a place in our body image where we feel comfortable. And I finally got to that place for me. And then literally as soon as I got there, I got pregnant after Jules. So then I was
whose fault was that? Well, for our audio listeners, there's just a question mark. We don't know.
I pointed at the man. Okay. So no, but I'm grateful because we got our little pop. So anywho, after I had him, it was a whole different ball game. I was getting, I guess, a little older, if you will. I don't know. I don't feel old, but and so I tried really hard for like 2 years, and so I finally felt like at a place like I felt stuck. And I was ready, though, to say, I want to feel good again in my own skin. And not just for the sake of vanity, like, oh, I want to look good, but I wanted to feel good. And I feel like in like 2 years ago, I didn't have the knowledge about nutrition. Like, I knew, okay, to get fit, you eat healthy and exercise. That's as far as I really knew, right? And so I came to a place a year ago where I said, I feel like I need help. And you know what? I had to humble myself because I tried the different, I don't want to say diets. I never said like, oh, let me do this diet or that diet, but I tried to restrict and then I'd go crazy, restrict and go crazy. And I never felt like I found any true progress. I would work out, but just hate it every time. Like I would literally like, oh, I have to work out if I want to like feel good again. And it was just like this like frustrating cycle, and I was never content, and I never found like that rhythm. So a year ago, I decided to reach out to a friend of mine who's a coach, a good friend of ours. And I was like, look, can you help me get this nutrition on lockdown? I was like, look, I will do the workout part. I can do that, but help me with the nutrition. And we've spent this whole year, and my mind has been blown learning about the actual concepts of nutrition. So I'm trying not to like, I don't want to go on a tangent. My point is I feel like I was able to learn so much, but it wasn't just like, oh, like I want to lose weight and be fit, which was a great part of it. But it was more so, man, the discipline and the mindset shifts that went on this past year were like no other before. Yeah. Like that was, I feel like the coaching process that I went through with her and nutrition, and I will say Homer did this all along with me. So being able to do it with your husband and have that support and even do it together is just so much, it makes it so much, I don't want to say easier, but it's just so amazing.
Makes you feel like you're not alone.
Yes, you're not alone. And so that was really helpful. And so
maybe getting a friend
to
join up with.
Yes.
Friend if you don't have
just having that accountability.
If you're single.
Yeah. Having that accountability, having someone to support you in that, and just do it fun with you. Like, and like be motivating and like, hey, let's do this together really is helpful. But I guess your main question is, through this process, I feel like, and let me say this, I've never, ever been a morning person. I've always been a sleeper. Even having kids, it's been such a struggle. And I said, I probably will never be the person that will ever wake up early and work out before my kids wake up. Why would I ever do that? Never thought I would ever even become that person. All of a sudden, turned 34, started doing this coaching program, and literally one day something just switched in my brain, if you will. And I said, you know what? Enough is enough. Like if I want to like master this day, because I know once the kids get up, my day is catering to the kids because I homeschool as well. So when we get up, breakfast, homeschool, live, like what have you. And it gets so much harder to quote unquote work out in the middle of the day than it is to just start your day that way. Yeah. And of course, for a long time, we worked out in the middle of the day, and that was our routine for a very long time, but it was exhausting. I would continue to dread it. I didn't want to do it. I try to make excuses every day, like, should I work out? Oh, maybe no. And it was so much easier to say no. But when we began to say, you know what? And one day I was like, I think I can finally do this. And I even made this shift in my mind, like, this is not just like, let's see what happens. This is what we're doing. Yeah. Lauren, this is what we're doing. And it was bringing in that discipline aspect. And so we started waking up before the kids. And that is our new routine, 3 to 4 days out of the week is my goal, at least. And try to shoot for 4 and spend about 45 minutes lifting weights in our wonderful home gym. Thank you, Homer. And I feel like even though it's hard to wake up, even though I'm tired, once I start working out and when I finish, I feel more energized, I will say, and I feel more motivated, and I feel so much more accomplished already. And I feel like I can look at the day like I have been productive, and I feel more confidence at the day that I face, rather than not doing that. I wake up like in shambles, like, okay, let's get ready. Let's make breakfast. Okay. Oh, maybe I need to work out later. And it almost feels like this heaviness on top of me. Yeah. I feel like I'm scrambling throughout my day. But when I begin my day with that workout and that routine, no matter how tired I am, then I feel like I have more confidence over my day, if that makes sense. So I'm not trying to like continue to ramble on this, but it's been, so even though it's hard, because of the results that I feel from it, I'm motivated to continue making that my discipline. Yeah. And so throughout this past year, the discipline has been something that has been super implemented for me. And I've never been a super disciplined person. Like I'll be disciplined in some things, but I'm a very like like scatterbrained kind of person, like ADD person. Like I'm all over the place, as you know. So that's not always like a gifting for me. And then when it comes to nutrition, what I do right now is just tracking the macros through the coaching program. And now I feel like it's a lifestyle I don't ever want to leave, because it has given me the control to really know what I'm consuming instead of just guessing every single day. And in that tracking of macros, I can still enjoy things like, and we're obsessed with wings. I can have wings if it fits in the macros, right?
Almost had them today.
We almost had them today, but then I also made a disciplined decision to eat leftovers and save money. And anyways, so anywho, it was good. It was good. But my point is like, it's given freedom. I don't feel like I'm on this diet, but it's also taught me how to look at what I'm actually consuming and be confident and know that this is good for me, if that makes sense. So that was probably a long answer, but I hope that answered some of your questions since you asked.
You know, I want to ask, because I know you for, it's been 12 years now. Beautiful, wonderful years. And when I used to take you to work out, you seemed kind of mad at me. Yeah. Most of the workout.
Because he loves working out, and I just like, oh my gosh.
And I remember specific times in which, say, I showed you a workout, and you're doing your reps, and I was like, okay, one more. And you're like, no, I'm not doing one more. And you just rack it. And it, like the idea of facing that challenge almost like pissed you off. Yeah. And you were just not down. You're just like, I'm going to do the workout and I'm done. Yes. I'm not overachieving anything. Right. And now you're getting up at 6 a.m. and working out before your kids wake up. And it's this total change. And I think that the inspiring part of it is this idea that you became tired enough of the way that you felt. Yeah. Not only in like the way that you saw yourself. Yeah. And I love how you said it's not about like there being this ideal figure, right, but this idea of being comfortable in your own skin. Right. And you also talked about this idea of, I like the word you use, scrambled. Yeah. You know, you feel like scrambled. And I think that's the thing that kicked me out of bed, is that I hate the feeling of being awoken by screaming or like by my kids dictating how I feel that day. And not that they're, you know, evil, but it's like immediately demanding like what was going to happen today. And it makes me feel more stressed out. I start my day feeling almost like stressed and anxious. Right. I haven't even like been able to have coffee yet. My kids are already like saying, I want this, I want that. Right. But being able to start the day and have like that moment of silence, have that cup of coffee, calm down, and then like, okay, time to seize the day. And it just makes the rest of the day seem that much more almost like achievable, right, within your grasp, your control. And I had to ask about it because I know Lauren more than any of you. Yeah. And it is like this radical change that you had. And I would say that anyone that wants more information about like the coaching that Lauren went through, all the extra stuff that she's saving us from hearing about, it's really interesting stuff. You could always reach out to her directly.
I'll talk to you about it, yeah.
You know, as we wrap up, I got to ask, I think that everybody wants to know, they have these questions in their heart. Okay. What is it like being married to Homer Hargrove?
It's awesome.
Why do you gotta be like that?
It's awesome. It's awesome because it's a constant, like I tell some of our friends, he's always on. So you are just...
On in what way?
You're all... The comedy
Sexually,
show... Okay,
comedy.
You see? He's always on. Comedy Homer is always on. So he doesn't just want to... He doesn't just enjoy making people laugh at church or out there in public. I need y'all to know that at home, just us two, he is always on.
So you would say that there's not Homer at home and stage Homer.
No. What you get here is what you get there. What you get there is what you get here. So, and I will say that when I prayed for my future husband, which is Homer, right, that I put a huge list of things that I desired in a man. Very huge. Sure, and the first one was... He has to be on fire for the Lord, and he is. And the second one out of the huge list is he has to be funny because I like to laugh. And boy, did God answer that prayer.
Be careful what you ask for.
So no, being married to Homer is fun. He makes me laugh all the time. Being married to Homer is being actually truly loved. He's the most patient person that I've ever known in my life. And for those of you who might think, oh, Lauren's so sweet and just such a darling, I give Homer a run for his money. And so he's the only one that can truly handle me, and he handles me very patiently.
Just in case anyone was wondering if maybe they would do it better.
No.
You wouldn't even be able to handle it. If you've been just thinking about that in your mind, fantasizing.
Stop.
You're sick. You're wrong. And you wouldn't be able to handle this lioness.
No.
Okay? She would eat you alive. And not in a good way either. So get that out of your head. What?
Alrighty. Well, he said it for you. So no, Homer is amazing. I love it. He just makes life fun. And I will say he's one of my biggest motivators and encourager. Like anything that I have an idea for or a desire for, he is the first and only and the most like, yes. Like he's always my yes man. He's always like 100%, let's do it. And not only that, like he supports me and helps me with every little thing that I want. He not only does everything that he has to do, but with the homeschool group, with the mommy, just like, hey, can you make me this? Hey, can you help me with this? Hey, do you? So he is literally helping me behind the scenes with all that. So he is one of the greatest supporters, and I mean so much more. And he's super hot, so I'm pretty lucky.
I do what I can.
Yeah.
You know, I mainly just wanted you to say how funny I was.
Yeah, I know, and I said it, but it's true. Okay.
But you know, I gotta say, you know, to kind of just be off the cuff.
Oh, here we go.
I'm so in love with you. And I know that we're going to be posting this recording. Mm-hmm. But I just want to say, will you marry me?
Yes, I will marry you, Homer.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Again?
Again.
And we would start all over. You would marry me?
Yes. I would love to. Yes. All right. Let's do this.
Just want to make sure I got on one knee.
All right, we're getting married.
All right. Well, I feel good about this. I feel good about the direction we had.
Yeah, this was good. Yeah.
In closing, could you just tell people, what are your thoughts about ghosts?
They're lame. They're not. They're.
Do you believe in ghosts?
I don't know. I believe in spirits, the spiritual stuff. So if it's a ghost, it's a ghost. I don't know. There's spiritual stuff going on.
Do you think there's a difference between a ghost and a spirit?
Ish? No.
Well,
I don't know. I consider the concept of ghost a spirit.
Do you think a ghost is just like more of a spooky spirit?
I think it's just an animated thought to a spirit.
Animated thought.
Does that make sense?
No.
No. I just think it's someone just like, well, let's call it a ghost. It's a spirit. It's some sort of spiritual stuff.
So it's like an unarticulated spirit, is what you're saying. Like a spirit is like the spirit of God or the spirit of anxiety. Okay. Like it's like an articulated, like, I know what this is. But a ghost is like kind of vague and a little eerie. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just some weird spiritual thing.
Okay.
If it is a thing.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you don't believe in ghosts?
Not in ghosts.
Like apparitions of like people, like say.
Now
like,
I feel all spooked.
Well, it's Halloween.
Ew. No, I canceled that.
I should do like a new intro theme that's Halloween themed.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily believe in like the idea of like peoples as ghosts or anything like that? No. Oh, okay.
Mm-mm. No. Oh. I mean, if you're dead, you're dead.
You never had like kind of like a ghastly experience like of a ghost?
No. Weird spiritual stuff, but not ghost vibes. I've had dreams.
Okay. Yeah. But those were like spiritual dreams.
Yeah.
Not ghostly dreams.
Yeah. No. I opened a door one time in my dream and there's all these spirits that were kind of floating.
Whoa.
But why? I don't like it. I don't want to talk about
let's change the subject.
Yeah.
I don't
Holy
want to make
Ghost.
you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, Lauren, I feel like we learned a lot from you today. Being able to hear your story, and we didn't even get into your whole story.
Yeah,
you have
there's
so
a lot
much more to be able to tell. Mm-hmm. But I feel like we were able to really get a better grasp of who you are as a person. Not just the pastor's wife, not just the mom, right? But really who Lauren is and some of your aspirations, your fears. You talked about crying with the kids and how hard it was, and now you're doing all of these different things and being able to see like transformations you've had. I think it's really beautiful. And I think that I really wanted you to be the first one on for this new direction of the podcast, because I feel like your story is this beautiful way of how we can connect and grow the best we can.
Yeah.
And it's really just taking one day at a time. So I really appreciate you being on this show with me. If people want to connect with you, how can they connect with you?
Just call me up. Just kidding. Instagram, Lauren A. Hargrove. You know my tags better than me. Facebook. That's, pretty much it. Yeah.
So
Mommy with Jesus podcast, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Yeah. Homeschool group. Let me know. We have a Facebook group as well. Blessed Beginnings. So yeah.
And anyone can join the Facebook group for the homeschool?
They can. Yeah. And then
great.
we'll go from there. So yeah.
And the Momming with Jesus, does that also have a Facebook group?
We do have a private Facebook group. So any woman, mother and woman, we allow women, even if they're not in a season of motherhood, to totally be a part, because our main purpose and goal is to just have community for women. So yes, there's a private Facebook group where we get to kind of talk throughout the week, encourage each other, share edifying things, and also where you can get all the details of connecting to not only the podcast, but we have a live group every Thursday at 8 p.m. via Zoom. And so we have Bible studies every Thursday via Zoom, and it's just convenient for women because we're doing a billion things. Half of the women on there are listening, washing dishes, putting babies to sleep, doing laundry, and we're all growing together. And then we also, of course, have our goal is to have a monthly fellowship, which is what we've been doing, and so in person that is. So yeah, those are some ways to connect. Just let me know.
Yeah, that's great. And do you have a website or anything?
HomerandLauren.com.
Okay.
Yes. Homer manages all that, so yeah.
That's great. Yeah, so if anyone wants to connect with Lauren, whether it's a Blessed Beginnings homeschool group, whether it's Momming with Jesus podcast and group that meets in person as well. It's not just virtual. Y'all meet in person as well when applicable. And even your website, homerandlauren.com.
Right.
And people can even give a speaking request for you and have you go speak at their event, whatever.
Right.
Have you on their podcast show. You're such a well-articulated speaker, too.
Thank you.
I fumble around with my words a lot, but you...
I fumble clear. All the time.
I'd like you to fumble with something else, if you know what I'm saying. All that being said, I'm so grateful for you guys being a part of today's episode. Lauren, I'm so grateful for you being with us. And what are you doing later?
Just hanging out with this cute guy.
Do you think maybe I could come with you?
Call me.
Okay, well, I think that's a good place to end.
Yes.
With that being said, until next time, have a great life.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. I hope that this episode was meaningful and edifying for your leadership and your growth within your ministry and organization. Could you do me a favor? Could you leave a rating and review for this podcast? It'd really help me out and help others be able to see this show in their feed. You can also visit homerhargrove.com to be able to learn more, connect, or become one of our supporters. Until next time, have a great life.